And now it's time for us to discuss more of these headlines in simple keywords with Adam joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Adam.
Well, good morning, Lena. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Let's jump in. As always, we try to clarify some of the major headlines for our listeners, and this is our first pick of the day.
Defensive counter-air.
So South Korea's Air Force has staged air defense drills as tensions linger over North Korea's continued missile threats. What's the latest, Adam?
Yeah, so around 20 aircraft, including the F-35A, F-15K, as well as the KF-16 and FA-50 fighter jets were mobilized for these air defense drills known as defensive counter-air, or DCA for short. Now, these drills simulated scenarios involving cruise missile launches, as well as intrusions into airspace by hostile aircraft. The primary focus of the exercise was to enhance the fighters' abilities in locating and intercepting opposing aircraft. Additionally, troops from the air defense and missile defense units practiced tracing missiles and using surface-to-air missile systems to neutralize airborne threats. These recent drills were conducted as part, of course, the Uji Freedom Shield. Throughout the UFS, the Air Force intends to carry out various joint field exercises with the U.S. Air Force, encompassing combat search and rescue training and live fire drills. President Yoon, meanwhile, said true peace is defended not by one-sided begging or goodwill, but only by overwhelming strength. And he vowed to overwhelmingly punish any provocation from Pyongyang.
And with that, we move on to our second keyword of the day.
Bigger markets.
So, of course, as a result of the recent standalone sit-down between the leaders of South Korea, Japan, and U.S., we have some commitments. President Yoon also weighed in on the trilateral alliance, again, with the U.S. and Japan. He also addressed the rising tensions with North Korea and plans to address that. What did he have to say about the alliance specifically?
Right. Well, he said the Camp David Trilateral Summit marked a new era of South Korea-US-Japan cooperation, benefiting citizens and enhancing gains. He assessed that previous trilateral dialogue had weak foundations and limited cooperation, whereas the Camp David Summit institutionalized and solidified what he called a comprehensive cooperation framework. He highlighted that this cooperation would evolve into a regional body contributing to Indo-Pacific freedom, peace, and prosperity. He stated that this three-country cooperation, along with entities like AUKUS and the Quad, would boost peace and prosperity within and outside the region. You particularly mentioned that citizen benefits and gains would increase, and that risks would decrease and opportunities would grow in an expanded market. He seemed to be responding to criticism that the summit favored US-Japan interests over those of South Korea's. Now, he explained that partnering with democratic, market-based, rule-of-law nations transformed South Korea's international standing. He evaluated that the summit established what he called comprehensive cooperation across security, economy, and technology. And he also countered claims of security risks, saying cooperation strengthens security as well as boosts the economy. And he also instructed officials to enhance diplomatic missions cooperation among the three nations as well.
And of course, cooperation with the three nations, I think at the utmost priority was to tackle North Korean threats that have been ever so evolving. So what did President Yoon have to say about the tensions with North Korea?
Yeah, so he said that if North Korea keeps making threats, the stronger the security cooperation will be among South Korea, the US, and Japan. He said this cooperation will help bring peace and progress in the region. He added that when the three allies connect their warning systems for supply chains, their ability to manage supplies will get much better. Yoon warned that North Korea might try to spread fake news and create confusion in case of war. And he said they could attack important infrastructure, including nuclear power plants here, as well as communication networks. And to that end, he said that this year's UFS will also include a practice for responding to a nuclear attack from North Korea as well.
So President Yoon reaffirming that peace can only be maintained through overwhelming force. Now, if there's anything that complicates a process that the three countries have made at the recent summit is probably the polarizing topic of wastewater release. We'll get to that in just a moment. In the meanwhile, this is our third keyword of the day.
Naval power.
North Korea's state media reports that Kim Jong-un has visited a Navy unit and inspected a cruise missile test aboard a warship. This seems to be an apparent show of force in protest of the ongoing joint exercises right here in South Korea. Can you tell us more?
Yeah, so the report on the North Korean leader's visit was released actually the same day that the UFS rather, excuse me, kicked off. The date of his actual visit, though, wasn't disclosed, so we don't know if it was on the same day or not. State media said the Navy flotilla is tasked with defending the East Coast, and that Kim watched sailors on board stage a launching drill of strategic cruise missiles. The KCNA's use of the word strategic in reference to the tested weapons implied they were developed to carry nuclear warheads. The KCNA said the launch aimed to verify the combat function of the ship and the feature of its missile system while improving sailors' capability to carry out an attack mission in actual war, adding that the ship's missile hit the target without any errors. Kim reportedly said he would bolster efforts to build powerful warships and modernize shipboards along with underwater weapons systems for the country's navy. Now, photos released by state media of the new corvette labeled Patrol Ship number 661 showed it has around 8 cruise missile launch tubes. The missiles launched from the ship appeared to be the Hwasao-2 cruise missiles, which were actually tested earlier this year on land and from a submarine. South Korea's defense ministry issued a statement saying it had detected signs of the launch, but it also said the KCNA's claims were exaggerated and different from the facts, but it didn't really elaborate further on what it meant by that. Meanwhile, Japanese media reports that North Korea has notified Japan's Coast Guard of its intention to launch a satellite between Thursday and August 31st. Kyodo News said the plan is believed to be a retry of the failed military reconnaissance satellite that North Korea launched back in May. North Korea also slammed the UFS drills, warning of a possible outbreak of what it called thermonuclear war. So some strong rhetoric coming out from Pyongyang yet again.
All right, for our fourth keyword, we get a closer look at ways to tackle the so-called don't ask why crimes, our fourth keyword of the day.
Random crimes.
So President Yoon has ordered Prime Minister Han Duck-soo to develop strong actions against these seemingly random crimes. The first step might be to figure out why they are no longer random. There have been disturbing incidents recently, most recently a woman being raped in broad daylight.
Yeah, in broad daylight, that was especially a shock to society here, and it followed a series of kind of disturbing events, as you mentioned. This woman was raped and beaten by a complete stranger on a hiking trail. There were also stabbing attacks, of course, that led 2 people dead and 16 injured in Pundang, and therefore Yoon called for comprehensive measures, including strengthening law enforcement capabilities. Justice Minister Han Dong-un also weighed in. He warned that individuals spreading murder threats online could face serious consequences, including imprisonment. At the timing of that Pundang stabbing attack, there had been a flurry of these posts online that were threatening to carry out some copycat crimes as well. A few of them actually came into fruition, but still, the fact that these posts were made was, of course, concerning. During a National Assembly Committee session, Han noted that many adolescents posting such threats might not comprehend the gravity of their actions.
Because when they actually brought in some of those supposedly copycat crimes posters, it turned out a lot of them were also adolescents too, and they had really no idea the repercussions that would come about.
Right, so it seemed like they were, whether you could call it a prank or not.
Right.
I mean, the severity of it was, of course, concerning, but the fact that the majority of them were very young, of course, sparked the government to intervene and try to crack down on such behavior. And the minister stressed the need to deter these behaviors, especially among young students. He emphasized that even if the perpetrators are minors, the police are pursuing detention, highlighting the importance of immediate intervention. And he highlighted the concerning trend of increasing murder threats, potentially emboldening individuals to act on their boasts, calling for swift action to curb such behavior from the outset, and he stated that efforts are being made to enforce strict penalties. Whether such actions and measures will work remains to be seen, but the government is certainly stepping up its efforts to crack down on such posts and such actions altogether as well.
And going back to your topic we mentioned earlier, Japan, of course, has plans to discharge a treated nuclear wastewater, and it's a polarizing topic in South Korea. Our fifth keyword of the day.
Imminent discharge.
So Japanese media reports say that Tokyo will begin a contentious plan to discharge treated wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean as soon as Thursday. It was on Sunday the Prime Minister of the country, Fumio Kishida, visited the site. It sort of signaled that the release date will be announced soon.
Yeah, so it is certainly a meeting will be held today to confirm the date.
Okay.
But apparently Japanese media believes the discharge will begin on Thursday, citing several government sources. But opposition from neighboring countries like here in Korea, as well as China, and concerns about long-term safety, of course, persist. Now, if the release does occur on Thursday, it will be around 12 years after the Fukushima nuclear disaster was triggered by that huge earthquake back in 2011. Addressing opposition from fishermen, Kishida said he will keep trying to communicate with them to win their backing for his administration's efforts to ensure what he called the safety of the water and for its measures to respond to potential reputational damage. There has been strong opposition from not only fishermen from these neighboring countries, but locally as well, because, of course, they have to export their fish elsewhere. And if neighboring countries are concerned about the safety, then, of course, their reputation and subsequently their businesses will suffer. The government has set up funds worth 30 billion yen to overcome any reputational damage. And they've also set up 50 billion yen to ease potential economic damage and support local fishermen in sustaining their businesses. Whether that will be enough remains to be seen. And now, acquiring approval from the fishery industry is a crucial factor for the Japanese government and the operator of the Fukushima nuclear power plant, as they have pledged to not go ahead with the discharge without the fishermen's consent. Whether that pledge will hold true remains to be seen. Apparently not, considering that these media reports suggest that the discharge will actually begin in a couple of days' time. So, of course, a lot of people were thinking maybe the end of this month, but apparently, though it's not confirmed, it's going to be much sooner than that. But, of course, we won't know anything for sure until we have official confirmation after today's meeting between Kishida and the relevant officials.
I mean, 2 days from now, Thursday, I mean, according to at least some of these Japanese media outlets, that is the end of August, isn't it?
It certainly is, yes. We have about a week to go. But I think some people were kind of seemingly that more towards the actual end of the month, maybe
or maybe even pushed further back.
Early September, maybe, yes.
Right.
But of course, I think Prime Minister Kishida wants to push ahead with the plan as quickly as possible. All the final stages are in place. The tunnels and all the tubing is in place as well. So it's just a matter of basically pushing the button, and whether that takes place this week, we'll have to keep our eyes and ears open.
Meanwhile, authorities in Seoul are still holding those daily briefings, right, to sort of dispel what they deem to be unnecessary fears.
So that's another good point. I mean, officials here are still concerned. Although they have kind of said they do respect for example, the IAEA's kind of conclusion on the matter. But of course, they said that they will continue to try and discuss the issue with the Japanese side. But of course, if Tokyo does go ahead without the full consent of Seoul, then of course that will have some repercussions in terms of the relations between the neighbors as well. So it'll definitely pour water over efforts to, try and improve those relations, especially recently as well.
I mean, there were many grounds for partnership, and we just mentioned at the top of the segment, and it seems that this may complicate it. I mean, it continues to be also a polarizing issue in South Korea. Depending on where you stand in the political aisle, you have an entirely different perspective. Not the end of it, but let's first wait for the Japanese Prime Minister's announcement later today. Thank you so much, Adam. Have a safe day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You too. Have a safe day. See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.